Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Night Run Studio, and I'd like to welcome you to the second official devlog for my dream project, Willard. Willard is a puzzle platformer city defense game with RPG and city building elements. Now, you could be forgiven for wondering, what is a newbie developer doing, taking on a fire-breathing, gun-slinging unicorn of a project like that? Touché. But this project won't let me go. I've been working on the skills to make it happen for the last year, and I've got the grit and determination to keep going, even when it gets tough. You really can't have a game at all without movement, so I decided that's where I'd get started. I've been working on my pixel art skills over the last year or so, and I had some assets ready to go, so I took them out, threw together a level that I could move and jump around in, and I got started. These days, no indie side-scroller can avoid comparison to games like Hollow Knight or Celeste. Those games just have such tight, fun controls that you can lose yourself just running around and jumping, even when there's not really anything else to do. I'm still a newbie programmer, so I have no illusions of revolutionizing platformer movement at this time. That said, being new is no excuse to not have tight, fun controls.
I tried out a few different approaches to movement, from a scaled-back jump and move that were close to real-life physics, to a Super Mario-inspired slippery movement scheme, complete with jumps that allow the player to change direction in midair. For the time being, I've settled on the latter.
Much of Willard's exploration will rely on planning and strategy as you move rocks, set up ramps, and launch boulders to crush enemies. So I've decided to go with an exceptionally powerful jump and a high level of control while in midair, allowing the player a lot of opportunity to maneuver and set things up for the strategy.
I've also added a couple of modern platformer staples to make the player feel more in control. The first is Coyote Time, which, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is allowing the player to initiate a jump for a short period of time after they've left a platform. That way you never have that frustrating moment of screaming at your controller because you're certain you hit the button in time but your player didn't jump. The other feature I added is jump buffering. This is similar to Coyote Time but in reverse. Jump buffering allows the player to hit the jump key just before landing. Once again, this avoids angry rage quits and smashing your controller against your forehead.
With basic movement out of the way, I decided the next task would be to start work on the puzzle-based exploration side of the game. Quickly threw some tiles together so that I could start work on the core mechanics of the puzzle-solving levels. Much of Willard's going to take place in and around the mountains, and so many of these challenges will include a high degree of verticality. As I got working, though, I quickly realized that I couldn't really do any work on puzzles until I figured out how my camera was going to work. I've now mostly settled on a semi-static camera, something like what you would see in Celeste, where most of the puzzle is visible at any given time. As I started putting this together, I liked the functionality of it, but I wasn't crazy about the feel. With such a static camera, you didn't really get the sense that you were climbing as you worked your way up the mountain.
At this point, I decided to take a rabbit trail into graphics land and create an early idea of how I could use parallax scrolling to make exploration feel more authentic. This was my first foray into parallax scrolling, and as I mentioned before, pixel art is something I still have a lot of room for growth in. That said, I put together a minimalist mountain backdrop and, thanks to CodeMonkey, was able to get a handle on parallax scrolling. Although I've still got room for growth, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out for the moment. Ascending each new level of the mountain really feels like it brings a level of uncovering as the world fades away in the background.
It was about this time that I got ready for my annual trip in the mountains with my brother. All right, heading out on day 2 of this adventure. We're looking at a little over 30K and a fair bit of climbing. Should be fun. Decided to go to Jasper, Alberta, in Canada, and I realized that this would be the perfect opportunity to do a little bit of research while actually hiking in the Canadian Rocky Mountains.
Besides having an amazing time and enjoying some great pizza, I was able to capture a lot of footage to use as reference for my mountain levels. But the greatest revelation here didn't come from a mountaintop. Instead, it hit me while running through a meadow on the Overlander Trail. I'd initially planned to start my level in the mountains with some climbing, Now it occurred to me that building the anticipation and majesty of Willard's mountains would require delayed gratification. Before the player can reach the mountains, they'll have to traverse meadows and foothills, watching the mountains loom in the distance, growing ever closer as they explore. By the time the player reaches the mountain, there'll be a much greater sense of wonder and achievement. I want to do the same in Willard. The day I got home, I started work on trying to add a meadow filled with silverberry plants, much like the one I'd run through in Jasper. I'll admit that this turned into a 2-day detour that I probably shouldn't indulge too often. Nevertheless, I love how juicy and responsive these bushes are. And I can't say that I regret the time spent pixel arting and figuring out the movement.
One other important insight during this weekend was a growing awareness of the flora of the region. I remember reading how Eric Barone really paid close attention and incorporated many details from the Pacific Northwest when he was making Stardew Valley, and I realized that this is something I really need to do in Willard. And so, as I was making my way through the Overlander Pass and was running through these fields of silverberries, I decided I really needed to try to include some of this and bring it into my game to make it feel like the world is a little more authentic and real.
I also completely rebuilt my mountain level so that it would more closely resemble the meadow I visited in Jasper. Rooting my game more clearly in the real world makes it feel more immersive, and although my pixel art skill still has room for growth, I'm really happy with how the level's looking. At this point, it was time for a little family vacation at Shuswap Lake in BC, Canada. This was an amazing chance to unwind and catch up on some rest, but it also gave me the chance to do a little pencil and paper puzzle design. It felt good to spend some time around the fire pit, drawing up designs and thinking ahead about puzzle ideas. This is one of the first things that I'll be starting work on for my next devlog.
I know I said last video that I wanted to give you some insight into the story of Willard, but this video is already getting pretty long, and as much as I love making videos, I need to get back to development. So next devlog will be specially dedicated to giving you some introduction to the characters and story of Willard. Until that time, this is Matt with Night Run Studio. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this vlog. If you haven't done so already and you're enjoying the videos, please be sure to click like or subscribe to the channel, as it helps a lot. Until next time, cheers.